Ever since July 22nd of 1997, Eiichiro Oda has written and illustrated the story of One Piece, a shonen anime about a 17-year-old boy named Monkey D. Luffy and his journey to not only find the One Piece, but to become the king of the pirates. This story is known for its amazing side characters, top-tier plot, an iconic main character, and a manga that has over 1,000 chapters and an anime with over 1,000 episodes. You see, at face value, it seems pretty long, but if I've got to be real, I don't think One Piece is long enough. Now, I could just say that's because of the fact that One Piece is just peak, but in this video, I'm going to talk about why I think many other people think this way. Today's topic will be One Piece's element of change. I want to start this off by saying that this has nothing to do with the plot of the story. I think that this anime is very progressive when it comes down to it, and has such a complex story that I think even exceeds Attack on Titan. However, the first element in the series that I want to target is character development. Now, we all know that One Piece characters have background, whether that's the main characters of the show, supporting side characters throughout every arc, or even background characters that you might have not seen for the past 2 or 3 arcs. But that's background. See, when I talk about character development, I'm referring to the character's behavior and its shift due to a dramatic scenario, but doesn't change their character, more rather adds a dynamic to it. Now, this doesn't necessarily apply to background characters we might have not seen for a while, but One Piece post-time skip destroyed this dynamic for the Straw Hat crew. The only person who didn't become a victim of this destruction is Emperor of the Sea, Captain Monkey D. Luffy, the main character of the show. We see Luffy's character development in bits throughout each arc in post-time skip. The first real arc that this was pointed at was in Punk Hazard. Zoro pretty much told Luffy to lock in. This is the new world of the Grand Line, so we should be taking this more seriously. Luffy accepts his words, but proceeds to do something what most people think is stupid, being the Gum Gum UFO technique. But what most people fail to realize is that this was not a dumb move by Luffy. In fact, this just goes to show how creative Luffy can really get. Using his devil fruit to turn his body into what seems like a UFO or tornado, and then proceeding to sweep all the enemies off the bridge was actually a very smart move. People downplay Luffy, but he's actually a battle genius. We reach Luffy's second point in change in Dressrosa, where in episode 682, Law was concerned about him and Luffy's ultimate fail in their plan to take down the Smile Factory. Although the birdcage was closing in on Dressrosa, Law wanted to evacuate since Doflamingo would eventually have to answer to Kaido anyway, making it just easier for them. However, Luffy said something that shocked me. People see Luffy at face value as somebody who is just selfish, someone who does things just because he wants to do it. However, Luffy shows exactly why he's different from other pirates by explaining to Law what would happen to this country if he were to just straight up leave. Luffy may have denied it before, but this man is not just a liberator, he's a full-on hero. Other examples of these selfless acts can be seen also in Whole Cake Island, whenever Luffy closes off the mirror, separating between the mirror world and the Straw Hat ship, the Sunny. Luffy stepped into a territory he knew he was going to lose. However, Luffy's faith in this situation that he was going to be alright came through. Regardless of this faith. The main point is not Luffy's faith in this situation, but it's that no matter what, he wants to put his crew first. We see him do this so many times in post-time skip just by fighting the main villain. But this isn't just a demonstration of Luffy's awesome power. And honestly, this transition from an ambitious boy to a real man highlights him as the best captain in all of One Piece. This is a good dynamic. However, the same cannot be said for the rest of the crew. I'm sorry. After pre-time skip, it just feels like everyone's personality circulated around what position they play in the crew, or even the constant overdose of what the characters like at times. At this point, if he's not talking about swords, booze, or arguing with Sanji, it's just not Zoro. And it's funny because I feel like people forgot that Zoro actually used to goof off in the crew. However, this part could be backed up from the fact that Ace's death impacted him as a whole. He realized that honestly nobody is safe, especially in the New World, and that if Luffy wanted to become the king of the pirates, they would have to face off against the strongest foes in the New World. And if you've seen Marineford, I think that's enough said there. Luffy was just not ready, and neither was Zoro. So it's an understandable shift for Zoro to start acting more serious. But it's too much to ask for Zoro to even have a cracked smile. I'm gonna let Zoro slide because he's one of the coolest characters ever. For Sanji, I won't lie, it's even worse. Although he did have a pretty crazy and important character arc, there is no reason for you to be acting like that. I think that his shift was quite annoying to watch. This is no hate towards Sanji, considering I think he's one of the coolest crew members. But Sanji's shift from pre to post time skip went from down bad to down sad. And it makes sense because he did spend 2 years on Kamabaka Island. Can we talk about that, by the way? But the man had a nosebleed so bad on Fishman Island, he was quite literally out of commission. I felt this was rather annoying more than comedic, and really wasn't even that bad in pre-time skip. All Sanji does is cook, smoke, and talk about women. Oh, and argue with Zoro. Not gonna lie, bro. This arguing stuff is getting old. Another thing that I actually really missed about Sanji in pre-time skip is that he actually used to be the clutch man of the crew. Sanji saved the crew many times in Alabasta. Saved Usopp and Nami on the Maxim whenever he was fighting Enel, rescued Usopp and Frankie on the sea train, and even actually damaged Bluno, somebody who had hockey. Did I mention that he opened the gates of justice in Eni's lobby? Sanji was casually really acting like the spy of the Straw Hats crew. It just sucks to see that we don't get these moments from anybody anymore. Well, except for Brook and Whole Cake Island. Chopper used to be so cool in pre-time skip. But what happened, bro? Although Chopper is a child and he probably got more sensitive to the people around him, he actually used to be a more rational thinker of the crew, which seems to fit perfectly for a crew member that can quite literally cure anything. This couldn't have been done without Dr. Rean and Dr. Hiriluke's sacrifice, which inspired him in the first place. Chopper had attitude, was brave, and even a fighter at that. I would even go to say at the time being that he could quite literally compete with the top 3 members of the crew. But now he just feels like another Usopp and Nami. When any type of danger would make him shake in his hooves, it's no wonder his bounty's where it's at. Now moving on to Frankie. Honestly, all you would have to do is just get a piece of wood and Frankie would be there, since all he cares about is building stuff. This is more personal, but I've got to be honest, bro. Why does Frankie look like that post-time skip? His shoulders are literally bigger than his head. He saw Gear 3rd one time in Water 7 and he said, let me do that too. No, sir. And don't even get me started on the haircut, bro. What are you on? I really just don't understand why people love to get rid of their best haircuts. Frankie rocking the pompadour was actually really cool. I'm still glad that we kind of got to see a little bit more of that in Dressrosa and Wano, but it's still goofy in general. I mean, come on, bro. A cannon? What was going on to that metal brain of yours during the time skip? He's so lucky he's cool. To summarize, it's just the same thing over again. For Nami, it's just treasure, weather, or smacking the male members of the crew. For Brook, it's making the corniest joke ever or talking about panties. And if it isn't about being scared, is it really Usopp? I just feel like in terms of bravery, we needed a little more change here. From what it seemed like at first, Usopp was the less ambitious character of the crew. It honestly just felt like he just liked the idea of being a pirate, but lacked the bravery, let alone the goal. Over time, it started to seem like he wanted to become somebody more brave, especially in Water 7, which was an extremely important arc for him. He just felt like he wasn't doing enough for the crew. Yet very shortly after that claim, that was proven to be false. If Usopp fought everyone else the same way he fought his own captain, we would see a lot more promising moments from him. Yet all he lacked was the bravery. And yet we thought he acquired this post-time skip. For the 2 years that he was gone, he was training with Heracles in a man-eating insect jungle, and came back with not only facial hair, but he seemed to be pretty buffed up too, but he still acts the same. At this point, him being brave just feels like too much to ask for. I'm just hoping Usopp and Chopper locks in future arcs. The only problem Robin has is just constantly making dark remarks over and over again. Now, this doesn't necessarily happen too often, but I'm a D1 hater, so I'm just going to blame this on the directors for taking her melanin away. I know that this wasn't originally intended anyway, considering post-time skip Robin is how she should have looked throughout the series, but it's starting to seem like everyone's a victim of this now. And in Egghead Island, the only African character of the crew is lighter than everyone. They massacred my boy. Now, I understand that nationality doesn't always mean the ethnicity, but I just see this type of change unnecessary. This aspect isn't necessarily too bad, and if anything is probably more realistic, but in pre-time skip, a good amount of the time that Luffy spent with his crew was spent on the ship. Based off what I observed, the time spent on the ship was usually used for relationship building, having fun, and just overall enjoying the experience of being a new pirate crew. The sense of novelty made One Piece enjoyable for anyone to watch. That's most certainly not to say you can't say the same about post-time skip, but right after time skip, you start to notice that all those nostalgic moments are fading away. Everything seems just so much more fast-paced, and that's to be expected. I mean, after all, they enter the new world of the Grand Line. But you would think they would just dedicate a little bit more screen time to all the precious moments that they had on the ship. Like I said, not something necessarily bad, but I know this is something every One Piece fan wants to see again. The last thing I do want to talk about is that the plot can be so repetitive sometimes. Does a corrupt kingdom governed by a warlord sound familiar to you? Or that maybe even this corrupt kingdom has a damsel in distress which so happens to be the princess? I've seen this way too many times than I can count. I don't know about you, but sometimes the plot feels like it could just follow specific patterns sometimes. Whether that's bizarre territorial patterns, those mini-map moments at the beginning of each episode showing what each Straw Hat was doing, or even Luffy and his crew having their own separate battles at the end of the arc. And then after they win, they eat a big banquet, read their bounties, and go back on the ship. I love the bounty episodes, don't get me wrong, but man oh man, sometimes it just feels like some things just need to change, as well as some other things just need to stay the same. There are some Straw Hat crew members that I did leave out, but that will be for another separate video. In conclusion, whether or not there was something to change or maybe some things needed to stay the same, One Piece will always remain number one under Dragon Ball. But that's where I conclude today's topic. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, tell me something that you would probably agree on in terms of my list. Or maybe even comment something down that I may have missed. With that being said, thanks for tuning in on Beyond Topic and take care.